There are these invisible forces all around us, in our homes, in our offices, and they're shaping how we think and feel every single day. So today, we're going to make them visible.
Think about it for a second. You walk into a room and you just feel something's off, right? Maybe it feels stuffy or draining, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's totally energizing. We usually can't put our finger on exactly why. But what if we could?
And here's why this is so important. According to the World Health Organization, we spend 90% of our lives indoors. 90. That's huge. It means the quality of our indoor world is, it's pretty much everything when it comes to our health and well-being.
So yeah, today we're pulling back the curtain on those invisible forces. We're going to dive into the air, the light, and even the climate that are constantly, quietly influencing how you think, how you feel, and how you perform.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the very air you're breathing right now. It's so easy to just think of air as, just air. But honestly, the difference between a really healthy space and an unhealthy one often comes down to the stuff you can't see. Let's make this super real. Picture yourself walking through a crisp, open forest. Got it? Okay, now picture the air in a crowded meeting room after a solid hour. You can literally feel the difference, can't you? Well, that feeling, it has a name, and that name is carbon dioxide. Every single time we breathe out, we release CO2. Now, outside, it's no big deal. It just floats away. But indoors, it builds up. And that's why measuring CO2 in parts per million, or ppm, is honestly the best way to know how fresh your air is. It's a direct sign of how good or bad your ventilation is. Okay, I have to stop here and make a super critical safety announcement. Please do not confuse CO2, which we're talking about, with carbon monoxide, or CO. They sound similar, but they're worlds apart. High CO2 makes you feel kind of groggy, a bit unfocused. Carbon monoxide, on the other hand, is a silent killer. It comes from stuff like faulty furnaces. Your CO2 meter is for air quality. It absolutely cannot detect this lethal gas. You need a completely separate CO detector for that. Seriously.
So how do you know if your levels are good? Let's use a simple traffic light system. The green zone is anything under 1,000 parts per million. Think of this as fresh air territory. It's where your brain is at its happiest, its most productive. For some context, that forest air we were just talking about, that's around 427 ppm.
Now we move into the yellow zone, which is between 1,000 and 1,400 ppm. This is your warning light. The air is getting stale, and your brain power can actually start to take a hit. This is basically your body screaming, hey, we need some fresh air in here.
And then we hit the red zone, anything over 1,400 ppm. This is actually pretty common in crowded rooms with bad ventilation, and at this level, you're not just feeling a little off. Your brain is being significantly impacted. This is an unhealthy level, and it demands immediate action, like right now.
And if you want to see just how serious that impact is, look at this. Research from Harvard shows that in that yellow zone, your cognitive function can drop by 15%. But check out the red zone. At 1,400 ppm, that drop can be as high as 50%. A 50% drop. That's the difference between having a super productive day and a day where you're just banging your head against the wall.
Okay, let's switch gears. We've moved on from the air we breathe to the light we see. Or maybe more accurately, the light our bodies use. Because it turns out light isn't just for seeing stuff. It's actually a biological signal that runs our entire internal clock. The really important metric here is something called Melanopic lux. We'll just call it MEDi. This has nothing to do with brightness for reading a book. No, this is a measure of the very specific kind of light that acts like a master switch for your body's internal clock, your circadian rhythm. And yep, this is another one of those crucial distinctions. A standard light meter, the kind you might already have, measures luminous lux, which is just how bright a room looks to your eyes. But that tells you absolutely nothing about the biological signal your body is actually getting. You can be in a room that looks bright but is biologically dark, giving you zero signal to wake up. You need a dedicated sensor to see MEDi. So how do we actually use this? Well, it's all about timing. In the morning, you want a ton of MEDi, over 275, to basically shout at your body, hey, time to wake up, be alert. During the day, you want to maintain a nice, healthy level to stay focused. But then in the evening, and this is so important, you have to drop it way down, below 10 MEDi. That's what lets your brain produce melatonin and get you ready for deep, restorative sleep. So we've covered the air you breathe and the light you absorb. But there's this final set of forces that are always at play, the silent climate of your room. And that's dictated by temperature, humidity, and air pressure.
And here they are, the optimal ranges for focus and for comfort. For temperature, that's a nice, comfy 20 to 26 degrees Celsius. That's where our bodies don't have to waste energy shivering or sweating. For humidity, the sweet spot is right between 40 and 60%. And for air pressure, the key isn't really a specific number, but just keeping it stable. Getting that humidity right is a really big deal. If it's too low, you get that dry, scratchy feeling in your throat. And get this, it actually makes it easier for viruses to survive in the air. If it's too high, well, you're basically creating a perfect breeding ground for mold and mildew, which can cause stuffiness and trigger all kinds of allergies.
So, we've identified all these invisible forces, right? The stale air, the bad light, the off-kilter climate. It can feel like a lot. But what if you could stop just guessing about it and start actually knowing?
And this, my friends, is where it all comes together. The solution is just accurate measurement. Using the right tech, like a special kind of infrared sensor for CO2 and a dedicated sensor for MEDi, we can finally make all these invisible forces totally visible. We can get real-time data on our environment.
But of course, where you put your sensor really matters. For good air readings, you want it in what's called the breathing zone, so about 3 to 6 feet off the ground, and stick it somewhere central. Keep it away from things that can throw off the data, like direct sun or vents. And for light, you always want to measure vertically, right at eye level, to see what your body is actually seeing.
And once you can see the data, you can actually do something about it. It becomes this simple cause and effect game. CO2 creeping up? Open a window. Not getting enough MEDi during the day? Go outside for a bit or get some better lights. Getting way too much MEDi at night? Dim those lights, put the screens away. It's just about making these small, smart adjustments that can have a massive impact.
By understanding these invisible forces, you're empowered. You can stop just living in your environment and start actively designing it to work for you. So the real question I'll leave you with is this: are you creating an environment for a healthier, more productive life?